something was wrong with Isabella. Her classmates just couldn't figure out what. She was a shy and meek girl, and all throughout kindergarten, she never uttered a word. She had long, dark hair and often dressed overly formal. Even when addressed directly, she wouldn't respond, just silence. The kids all speculated that perhaps she was deaf or mute. Once, in a maths class, she was asked to solve an equation on the board. She just walked up to the blackboard and answered the question in chalk without saying anything. At lunch, she sat alone in solitude, and no one dared disturb her. Because of this peculiarity, she gained the reputation of being more than a bit strange, or of being the odd one out. This reputation would only grow when in first grade she finally opened her mouth, and instead of words falling out, her classmates heard the bleating of a goat. As time went on, her body seemed to warp out of human proportions. She grew abnormally long limbs and broad shoulders, and from her head grew what at first were just small notes that soon turned into full goat horns. Her classmates called her a freak and a weirdo. She became the school's pariah and was looked at strangely by even the teachers and adults. When Isabella finally finished her schooling, she purchased a small wooden cabin on the outskirts of town by the old stone dam. There she stayed in unspoken exile. Any passerby could see her through the window, endlessly reading her odd books by candlelight. Children would tell scary stories about her, and adults would speculate about how she came to be in this world, or blame her for anything bad that happened in the town. When crops would die, or when people would fall ill, she was suspected.
"Stay away from that cabin after dark," said one child to another. "If she catches you, she'll eat you alive."
Rumour had it that she had magic powers, or that her parents made a deal with a witch, or sacrificed a goat to a demon for her to live. Isabella, of course, could make no reply of any of this, and her parents had suspiciously fled town, abandoning her long ago. She was regarded by all as unsettling and sinister. Folks in the town never called her by her name, they only called her the Goat Woman. "She's not really a woman at all," some remarked. "Women don't have horns, she's just a goat." And so, the candle in her window burned every night, a lonely beacon at the edge of town, until the storm. On that sudden evening, lightning split the sky, rain lashed rooftops, and for the first time, Isabella's candle went out. The door in her cabin swung open. The Goat Woman stepped into the storm, hair plastered to her face, horns gleaming with rain. She walked with dreadful purpose. It seemed that judgment had finally come calling for the town that had rejected her. As they lay sleeping, they were blissfully unaware that now a bizarre intruder was coming to demand their attention and wake them from slumber. The mayor startled awake. At his window stood the twisted silhouette, knocking furiously, her voice a dreadful bleating cry. Her hair hung in dripping strands, her proportions seemed stretched and wrong, like an imitation of humanity. Terrified, he seized his shotgun and waited for the door to splinter. He feared what the Goat Woman could be capable of, and was prepared to shoot. But she didn't break in. She turned, ran, and beat upon the next house. Once again, she began pounding on the door and calling loudly with awful sound. The occupant of this house simply cowered in fear until she moved on like a spectre to the next one. The skies above were angry as the clouds poured down their rain. The creature walked with purpose down the cold, dark street. The goat woman stood upon the doorstep of the town sheriff, who was asleep inside with his wife and 2 children. When she began to knock brutally on his door and make disturbing, pained vocalizations, they all woke in alarm. The goat woman grabbed the door handle and tried to twist it violently. The sheriff was determined to protect his wife and children from whatever revenge this vile creature had come to enact on the town. He instructed them to hide in the basement. His daughters both began to cry in fear for their lives, and their terrified sobs made it clear they didn't believe anywhere was safe. When at last she staggered away, drenched and frantic, the sheriff's fear hardened into resolve. He decided the town didn't have to endure this terror any longer. He roused the men. Farmers carried blades. Merchants carried rifles. The storm became their battle hymn as they marched with torches blazing towards the outcast's cabin. Seeing the angry mob, the goat woman took off and ran towards her home, with them following close behind. She stopped short of her home and raised a trembling hand, pointing in the direction of her cabin. Her cries were desperate, pleading. The mob only heard madness. "We're not just going to let you go home now. We've had it with you terrorizing us, and we're not going to tolerate your wicked existence any longer," shouted a man from the crowd. "You've cursed our town for years now. We refuse to live in fear of what you'll do next. It's time for this monster to die." The rest cheered in agreement. The crowd descended upon the goat woman. They grabbed her and tied her to a nearby lamppost with ropes so that she couldn't fight back. The crowd all gathered around, many with guns drawn and aimed at the creature. "Give this damnable creature none of your sympathy," yelled out a woman from the crowd. "Demons are made to be cast out." A farmer in the crowd pulled out a metal blade and, without warning, began to cut into one of the goat woman's horns. She vocalized in agony as the horns grown from her skull were brutally hacked away till they were cut off entirely. Blood poured from her head and ran down her face in a gruesome display. People in the crowd picked up the 2 discarded horns from the street as if they were souvenirs. "She almost looks normal now," someone laughed. As the rain continued to come down, the goat woman thrashed about wildly and managed to free a single arm from her rope bonds. In her eyes, they could see the same frightened girl from the playground. But in spite of this, the town sheriff reacted quickly and shot the goat woman, hitting her directly in the chest. Before the light drained fully from her eyes, she extended a weak and weary hand once more, pointing in the direction of her old wooden cabin. It was only then did the townsfolk notice the cracks in the large wall of the nearby stone dam, straining under the pressure of the rising water. They barely had time to react before a wall of rushing water consumed them and poured out violently into the town, wiping away the houses they once lived in. Bits of stone debris flew out with great force as the dam broke, and the fast-moving water rose up to the peaks of the highest buildings. They were all too late to save themselves, to heed the warning that had been given to them. Their doomed outcast had seen the danger from her cabin view. With heart racing in a panic, she had attempted in vain to alert everyone to evacuate. That fateful rainy night was the end of their town, and the end of Isabella, the woman who tried to save it. Hi everyone, thanks for listening. This story was originally written by Reddit user Never You Mind. I've adapted it very slightly, about 500 words just for narration, so the credit's all hers. Poor Isabella. Just goes to show you should never judge a book by its cover, or a human by its horns. And now, a fun fact about goats. Did you know goats have rectangular pupils? The shape gives them the incredible panoramic view of the world, almost 340 degrees. So while we'd be staring straight ahead, a goat can basically see everything coming from the sides. Maybe that's why Isabella saw the danger long before anyone else did. Good night.